Welcome everybody, thanks for joining us today. So whether you're watching live or watching this as a recording, I won't say good morning, I won't say good afternoon, I won't say good evening, because it might be all three. So what we're gonna do today is I'm going to set the stage for what we think is gonna be a great session. Today, we are joined by three lovely people that I'll introduce in a minute. We're gonna be talking a little bit about our customer, Arctic Glacier. And Arctic Glacier was having some business challenges that we ended up helping them using a Microsoft Dynamics solution. So we're going to talk about that. It's going to be a very open session, very casual. For those of you who have any questions, if you can type them into the session, and Carrie will moderate those for us. And we're hoping that you enjoy the session. So allow me to introduce my three panel members. Let me get to my introductions here for a second. Okay, ladies first. I'd like to introduce Martha. So Martha is a senior consultant at CRMD-HSO with 25 years of experience in the field. Her expertise is system consolidation and modernization. Martha's background includes transformation, program delivery, data analytics, enterprise architecture, where she was the executive at Northbridge Financial, leading enterprise architecture, business intelligence, analytics, and AI teams. Beyond this, Martha has also been a director of data architecture at TELUS and TELUS Mobility. She is equally comfortable leading project implementations and working at the board executive level. So I'd like to thank Martha for joining us, and you'll get to hear from her in a minute. Welcome, Martha. Next, I'd like to welcome our customer, Nick Chodorow. So Nick is currently the Arctic Glacier Premium Ice Chief Information Officer. And since joining Arctic Glacier in 2019, Nick has been tasked with providing the packaged ice company with strategic vision and leadership, for their IT and business process initiatives. This has involved improving the availability and performance of Arctic Glacier's production environments, initiating and driving the modernization of Arctic Glacier's internal applications, and taking the leadership role in the company's efforts to improve its engagement with the customer through a unified customer experience and centralized ice distribution. Prior to joining Arctic Glacier, Nick spent 6 years as the CIO for the Belt Railway Company of Chicago, leading the railroad through a digital transformation. So Nick, thanks for joining us. We're looking forward to the discussion. Last but not least is Dan Mennie. Dan is the channel manager for Microsoft Business Applications from Microsoft Canada. Dan works with medium and small enterprise customers in Canada to help them align technology to drive business outcomes by bringing together Microsoft technology and the strength of the Microsoft partner ecosystem. So I would like to welcome all three of our panel members today, and we'll get started right now. So I'm going to do a bit of a commercial about who we are. This is going to take about 16 seconds. So HSO Canada is part of a global partner ecosystem that provides business applications, Microsoft business application solutions in the dynamic space. And we're very proud to be part of the HSO community globally, and we're representing the HSO Canada team here. That's the end of the commercial. Next slide. Okay, so for those of you who are here, what we're hoping is going to happen is you're going to hear things that are relating to your business. You're going to hear maybe there's something happening in your organization that you really don't know what to do and you need to get some help. If you reach out to Carrie or I, either during the session or afterwards, with questions or help you may need for your for your company, we're very happy to have a meeting with you and talk about how we might be able to help. Okay, so now we're going to get started. Let me talk a little bit about Arctic Glacier. So most of you already know who this is. If you've ever been to a store on New Year's Eve or during the summer to pick up a bag of ice, more than likely you're a customer already of Arctic Glaciers. I know I am. Arctic Glacier is the largest packaged ice company in Canada, and they're also one of the largest packaged ice companies in all of the United States. So they are a North American powerhouse when it comes to packaged ice and ice products. They even do ice sculptures. So if you go to their website and you need a fancy ice sculpture for your next event, I recommend you go over and check it out. So I'd like to ask Nick, if you would, to give us a little bit more background about who Arctic Glacier is to kick off our session today.
Yeah, so thanks a lot, Rob. You did a pretty good job of explaining what we do. We're kind of situated throughout Canada and most of the US. In most places, we manufacture the ice and then we also distribute it. So we are kind of the, from start to finish when it comes to supplying ice to customers of all types, from your Walmarts, Targets, Sobeys in Canada, the beer store in Canada to your local liquor store or convenience store throughout North America. And then, we also have some other businesses, as Rob mentioned, on the ice sculpture side. But, probably one of the coolest ones, especially for my kids, is that we do all of the um, ice and fake snow for a lot of the ads that you'll see. So during the Super Bowl, if there were any, and also obviously for Hollywood with movie production. So we kind of span a lot of areas that I didn't realize when I first joined the company.
Yeah, that's amazing. But the ice business must be a very simple business though, isn't it? Like what kind of business problems were you trying to solve and why would you engage us?
Well, so I would say that the manufacture of the ice is pretty simple, right? We all do that on a daily basis in our own houses. But the hardest part is really around how do we get the ice, the right amount of ice to the right place at the right time. And so that's what we were really, we're working to solve. And through that, we want to engage our customers at a much higher level than we were in the past, so that we can better understand and solve that problem together.
Yeah, and that's really where we got engaged, is to help you do that. As a company, what we do is we integrate the dynamic solution. So it was really great to start the project with you, with Martha leading the team and Dan from Microsoft. But moving over to Dan, so Arctic Glacier comes to Microsoft and says, "Hey, we need some help." So how did you help them decide Dynamics was the right way to go for them? Thank you,
Dan, I think you're on mute.
There's always someone, right? So when I first connected with them, we really honed in on some of the business outcomes they were looking to drive. So as you can imagine, ice is pretty seasonal, right? They supply sporting events. You might be going up to your cottage and stop off at a Loblaws, a Walmart, a Shell station, picks them up. They were looking at making better use of resources in the call center. They'd go from maybe 50 headcount to at least 2 to 3 times that, depending on the amount of call volume and orders coming in. So that was something they wanted to improve. How do we leverage technology to really better use the resources we have and not have to spin up so many at busy times in the year? They're also looking at improving customer service, increasing sales, and some elements of using their data to create a more intelligent ordering system. And they also want to improve their field service function. So having made these investments in Microsoft technology across our productivity, our collaboration, as well as our ERP platforms, it made sense from a data and data agility perspective, as well as an end user perspective to go with Microsoft.
Yeah, no, that's really awesome. So it's funny because a lot of the things you rattled off there were helping improve the business. And I don't know if every company in the world would turn to Microsoft if they had that list of things they wanted help with. How did Microsoft help specifically, if you want to comment on that?
If you take a look at where our real sweet spot is, as I mentioned, is where customers are using those productivity solutions, right? They spend, I do, I'm sure many of you do, spend most of your days within Outlook. So the ability to access data, whether it's from your ERP or your solution or your CRM solution without leaving the Outlook client is highly compelling. There were some studies done that showed there's a 40% loss of productivity when you toggle between a productivity and ERP CRM application. So having all this data together sitting on Azure really allows us to intelligently highlight data, in the flow of work where people are. We also help with partner selection. HSO was not the first partner. We ran into some hurdles, but we were here to help when Nick did reach out. So partners are incredibly important to delivering on those outcomes, right? You really want to find a partner that's has references within your vertical. They deliver that business outcome prior, and they've delivered on scope, within scope, and on budget. And I've known the team at HSO CRM Dynamics for, I think, going on 15 years now. I'm dating myself. But that's the reputation they have at Microsoft and with our customers and in our channel, right? They deliver great business outcomes. They do it on time and within scope.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Is there anything else you think is worthwhile talking about for the audience that's joined us can maybe see if they're struggling with some things, what they might want to
do? We've seen a ton of our on-prem customers moving to cloud, right? Especially during COVID, as people spun up remote work really quickly. So business applications, whether it's sales, customer service, field service teams, finance operations, we're seeing incredible growth in that business. We're seeing a lot of return to work scenarios, leveraging Power Platform, right, to make sure employees are vaccinated and they're well when they're returning to work. We're just seeing customers leverage all the technologies, whether it's business to business or business to consumer e-commerce, right? Curbside pickup, fraud protection, customer insights. So we're seeing a massive amount of investment in the Dynamics platform, and that's really resonating in the growth in the market we see right now.
Yeah, no, we're feeling it as a partner, as you know. COVID, when COVID first hit, it was a little bit scary. We didn't know what was going to happen, but then all of a sudden, companies were turning to technology to digitally transform faster than they ever were before. And we thought that would decelerate during COVID, but it hasn't. It's accelerated. So as a partner of Microsoft, we're seeing that a ton. So no, that's great. Thank you, Dan.
And you can see a lot of competitors really pushed each other to improve, right? You saw Teams and Zoom with a lot of different functionality, and worthy competitors pushing each other to deliver more. And a lot of functionality was delivered during the pandemic, right, as a result of increased usage. And I think the challenge, I think, made Microsoft and our competitors better for sure.
Yeah, well, it's interesting because as a CIO, Nick, like it's so important for CIOs to enable business transformation. And I've seen a lot of CIOs in the past keep the lights on, if you will, keep the website open and up and keep the spend down. And those were the kinds of things you would deal with every day. But you seem to be more of a member of the executive team that's driving the change. And even to the app, like on your website, you talk about an app that you have for your customers to use. But when a little bit while ago, we talked a little bit about problems you were trying to solve, and that's why you engaged us to help you. So what were those problems and how were they solved?
So I would say for us, it was, how do we provide a higher level of customer service and engagement with, as we've all talked about, without breaking the bank while doing it. And, to be frank, we had a, not a great relationship with our customers up till this point. And so we really wanted to change that because we felt that if we drive that, it's going to drive obviously, right, more business, but also more efficient business from our point of view. And so that was kind of one of the big things that we were looking to gain here. And when the pandemic started, our call center was primarily not controlled. It was a third party, and we made a business decision that step one was to bring it in house, and then it was how do we do that at the best. And that's, really where obviously you guys came in and really helped us do that. And then helped us understand, hey, we were also, looking to kind of have an omni-channel experience. So you mentioned the app, texting, IVR, all of that. And so that's really what we've been trying to, push and move forward on. And then, it's really solved for us a lot of things. We have a much higher customer retention, which obviously is a business is important than we've had in the past. And I think we can attribute a lot of that to that engagement and ultimately the better delivery of ice when people need it, which, ultimately is what our customers care about the most. And then, from a running the business perspective, we needed to have a better viewpoint, so to kind of take some of what Dan was talking about, we really jumped into the Power BI side and really, try to be data driven. Well, in order to do that, we needed a modern CRM that integrated well with all of this so that we could, manage the work and then also understand how best to address and work with our customers. And so that's what we've really, I think we've come a a long way during the pandemic. And then, you know, to kind of to echo everybody's comments, everything sped up. You know, we've certainly done way more digital transformation than I would have assumed. You know, when I joined in 19 and created a 3-year plan, this was kind of on the backside of the plan. You know, it became kind of at the forefront, and we certainly have a lot of work to go. But you know, we've certainly are happy with where we're at today.
Yeah, that's amazing. Yeah, we're hearing it from a lot of our customers, and it's awesome to see that you've kind of recognized the fact that if you put yourself in the customer's shoes and really look at the experience they're having, is it the experience you want them to have? And if not, how do you change it? And I think that's what I liked about working with you the most is you had that vision and you were not afraid to do things to go make it happen.
Yep.
But it's funny. So Martha is no stranger to you. You guys worked together quite a bit. Martha led this project for our company. And I'd like to turn over to Martha now and talk a little bit about how using the customer service workspace benefited Arctic. If you could, Martha.
Yeah, absolutely. So when we got started on the project, Nick and his executive sponsor team were pretty clear on our core objectives. We needed a rock solid customer service management process. Order taking was the biggest priority in terms of our volumetrics, both inbound and outbound within the call center. And as we were kind of taking a look at the core operations, I need to be able to understand my customer. I need to understand my customer's order status. We need to be able to connect that to cases, work in both a centralized and decentralized manner, both between the branches and the contact centers. So there were a lot of complex problems that we needed to solve. And we kind of started off with the first principle, which we consistently reuse, is to use the native capabilities of the CRM platform as much as possible. And we started with customer service workspace. The reason I love customer service workspace, and I'll talk about this with my existing projects as well, is the fact, number one, just the sheer volume of investments that Microsoft is doing in this application on a go-forward basis. So it's constantly being improved. So that's one of the great things from a software as a service perspective, is we start with a solid foundation, and once the project team rolls off, the platform continues to improve, which, you know, that's a pretty startling concept relative to our legacy systems we're replacing, where we put them in 20 years ago and they haven't changed in 20 years. This is a living and breathing ecosystem, which, as you can tell, gets me a little excited. Concepts such as relevant search, now it's called Dataverse search, multi-session user experience, really lends itself very nicely both to a contact center experience, but also when I'm working in the branch, trying to stay focused on my customer and what I'm trying to drive outcomes towards. So for us, it was a really natural choice to start with the app out of the box, extend it out to mobile, and then really work, once we got ourselves a solid foundation for customer service management, to extend that foundation out to other channels, self-serve IVR, both at inbound and SMS, order processing. But we started with the kernel, and Nick and I had a lot of conversations about, you know, we need a stable base before we add new functionality to it. And I think that strategy served us well.
Yeah, no, I totally can relate. You know what's interesting is we often talk about how projects fail. We see companies try to do things like this, and they spend a ton of money and never really get to that goal line. And so how did you prioritize with Nick how to approach sort of the long bucket list of requests that were coming out of the company?
I think there were 2 or 3 things, and Nick, you can add in on this one. If I think of, we had an exceptional circumstance with COVID. So volumes had dropped for Arctic in terms of sales. Arctic had decided to bring the contact center in-house, but we kept on thinking about May 2-4 weekend. We knew that across the US in particular, and at some point in Canada, celebrations, events, activities would start to pick back up. So we knew that we had a very inflexible timeline to work towards, and we had to prioritize to that. That was kind of number one. Number two, we wanted to retire an existing system. So we knew that in order for us to get from point A to point B, we had to get that core order management process understood and taken care of. And then number three was that extra business capability. We want to get proactive with customer management. And so from a pure sprint perspective, we organized our epics, divided them into features, and had strong business advocacy to help us prioritize, because they really were 3 different objectives. But through our sprints, we were able to kind of, I call it the rock theory. You got your boulders, you got your pebbles, and you got your sand. It's amazing how much you can put into a sprint when you kind of take that kind of a funnel approach to your sprint delivery. Nick can speak to kind of how we met those kind of core expectations, but that's basically how we manage prioritization, effective use of DevOps, and effective use of Agile, and ensuring that our team collectively, we did work as one team, Arctic and HSO at the time, delivered together.
Yeah, I guess I'll jump in, and I think the together and team was key. We really took an approach that it was we weren't throwing it over the wall to the HSO team and then expecting something back, and we stayed engaged, and obviously Martha and I, as kind of on the executive level, had many frank conversations. I think one of the this is not my first rodeo, but it's certainly my first rodeo where I think we did a really good job, or where we set kind of dates and we stick to them. And then, my job as the CIO is to have those frank conversations with my peers in my organization of, you want the ocean, but we need something by this date, so we're going to take 80% because that's better than 0. And our business environment kind of helps that in a weird sense. It's super stressful, in the sense that you need to be done, say, by April, because May is when everything gets busy. Right. But it forces you to make those decisions, and we worked really well doing that, and we certainly obviously have a lot of other stuff we would like to do going forward. But it helped us really turn it on when we said we were going to turn it on. And the company's certainly gotten that benefit from doing that, which is a great thing, right? You want successful stories versus failures, and I feel like a lot of times, as you mentioned, Rob, in our space, the failures get talked about way more than the successes. So
totally. Martha, do you feel the same way? Like that's how it went for you too on your side?
Oh, absolutely. So from a project team perspective, we had our 8:30 a.m. stand-ups every single day. We basically worked together as one team and delivered as one team. We planned together as a team. And I think the other thing that worked out really well from that perspective of, I think, of kind of that handoff, your typical handoff from vendor back into the corporate landscape. And I've lived equally on the corporate landscape as I have in consulting, and know the importance of a smooth handoff to production support. And it was great because a couple of weeks ago, even Nick went, someone on Nick's team said, "Hey, I need the password for this because we've put in additional functionality on the IVR." And I thought, oh, that's great, because what we've been able to do at the end of the project is create enough self-sufficiency as well for the team that Nick's team can continue to do enhancements, do configurations, and empower themselves to be able to move forward, bring us on for the bigger projects, I hope. But to really be able to come at the end of the project as self-sufficient as possible, that to me is that's real success.
Yeah, and I can't tell you how many times with partners I have that conversation of that's my expectation, and then it doesn't happen.
Yeah.
I won't name names, but I'm dealing with that right now with another project in a different space, where we've been really trying to push that, and my my kind of head of systems development has been very adamant and actually uses our experience with HSO as his argument with them, and we do not have that same teamwork, and I am very not confident that we're going to hit the date as a result. And so I think a lot of it was you guys really pushed and involved the team and included the team in the project plan, and that expectation that everybody was on that 8:30 in the morning call, which for those of us in the central time zone was a little early at 7:30, but there was that expectation and everybody lived up to it, and therefore we hit the deadlines. We delivered, but it was a really good thing about working with your team.
I think the other thing, if I can add to Rob, if I think of from a delivery perspective, Microsoft is there with us along the way. So if I think of we did have some tickets that we had to launch with Microsoft to get resolved as we were shifting and doing integrations. Integrations, as usual, are typically our most complex components of our projects. And as we worked through problems, sometimes it was a technical problem on one side of the house, the other side of the house. We had Microsoft also there supporting us and understanding the criticality of this particular go live. When we needed support 24/7, we got it. And I think that's the kind of your triangle of support, is the combination of partner, Microsoft, and customer, staying aligned together, keeping lines of communications open, as Nick says, having those frank conversations. And what a joy it is to actually have a pleasant conversation and a relaxed conversation rather than kind of that steering committee powwow. We did it collectively together between the three parties.
Yeah. No, it's music to my ears, because as you know, I lead our sales efforts at HSO Canada, and often in our presentations on the sales side, we talk about what the project will be like, what to expect from our teams and things like that. And I think half the customers I talk to don't believe me that we're going to do these things. But it's awesome to hear Nick say on his own that that's what we did and we followed through. You know what's interesting? I think the Dynamics platform lends itself, though, to handing the keys over to the customer if you've done a proper job, allowing them to take the platform to the next level. And then we still come in and do the hard stuff if that's needed. So I think it's a combination of our approach plus the fact that that's the Dynamics platform, and why we like it so much is it allows us to do the hard thing, pass you the keys over, and then you take it for a spin. So it's good to hear that that's working well for you. So my next question for Nick really is what's next for D365? Have you thought about that much lately?
Yeah, so I think for us, it'll be moving into kind of more on the marketing side, and really understanding and utilizing it in that standpoint. Obviously, also just driving forward and figuring out how we can automate more, and then garner that information and use it, wherever we really need it. But I would say step one is probably on the marketing side. And then the rest is around automation, around improving. One of the things that looking back on it, I would have liked to have addressed earlier on, actually even before we involved you guys, was the concept of really what do we want to do in the future, in the sense of changing our thought process of order types versus customer types versus all of these things that drive all the underlying processes. And we really didn't do that on our side as a company. And now we need to do that, because, I feel like, it's one of those things when you build technology, it opens people's eyes to what they could have. And so for us, we really want to get down to, when Martha's talking about ordering, well, we want to distinguish the types of orders, and we want to push different types of approaches or workflows tied to those types, and then be able to kind of correlate to the customer too. So that's to come. That's work that I think we're gonna work on this summer, because we can kind of do it on the back end, and then really play with it in the fall and winter. But that would be one of the big things that we'll work on, is kind of probably a revamp of how we did the whole order process, because we want to be way more specific than we ever were in the past.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. A lot of companies on the operational side are leveraging what marketing's done for years and sort of segmenting the customer. So like marketing always segments prospects and segments who they're targeting. But being able to take that same segmentation methodology into the company, like you just described, is becoming more and more important. Yep. Right? So don't treat every customer the same. And even using some of the Power Platform tools like Power BI and things like that to really have a window into really what's happening in your business, so you know what to do about it, is the next big shift too.
Yep.
That's awesome. So my next question really is around outcomes. So we're really big on asking customers for business benefits realization metrics. So how will you measure success is a common question we might ask. So on that note, how would you measure the outcomes of what you're about to start doing?
So I think for us, it's going to be on the kind of in two aspects, right? So you can look at it in one aspect on the top end, right? So how do we drive customer retention and more sales, right? That's super important, right? You got to grow the top line. And then on the bottom line, it's really how do we do this more efficiently? And so we're going to look at it from a perspective of, I want to use technology to drive down, as you were mentioning earlier, to continue to drive down those spiky labor costs that we have that only keep going up. I think, as everybody recognizes, doubling your team every summer is really expensive, and also then leads to a decreased product or experience to the customer, right? If you're bringing on people for 2.5 months, they're not as vested, and they don't understand or learn as much about your company as a permanent or a full-time person. And so we're going to use technology to drive that. We want to have better, we think that through all of this too, we'll have a better customer retention, that having more frank conversations with our customers with data helps, right? And then our ability to actually deliver the ice when we say we are, and taking, things to that next level. I'm really excited about the app that you mentioned that we just started advertising on the website. It's going to go full release mid-March. Right now we're piloting with some of our customers, but that really takes it and puts the control in the hands of the customer, and enables us to share the information that they have voiced they care about, and removes us as a barrier, or a human answering a phone as a barrier to get to that information, and it lets them control a little bit more of the experience and engagement, while also giving us a lot of insights into kind of their expectations and wants and desires, and then obviously enables them to order ice, which is a key and good thing for the top line. But yeah, I'd say that those are probably the big things. Adoption of the technology is a KPI that we're tracking against. Kind of goes back to my earlier comment about the order type. In the sense, right? We want to know, is the order placed on the app? Is the order placed via human? Is the order placed via IVR, or is it through texting? So that we can really manage that and understand. So those are some big things for us.
Yeah, what's interesting? I'm listening to you talk, and I listened to what Martha said, and I don't know if this resonates for Dan, for Nick, and for Martha, but I'm thinking like, there's a lot of organizations that have come out of nowhere to disrupt different marketplaces. Think about the taxi cab industry with Uber, right? I know it's kind of used all the time, but if you just think about it for a second. If companies that already have a reputation for servicing a client base, in your case, producing ice, high quality ice when and where people need it, is making that experience as good as possible by leveraging technology, you can actually disrupt your own customer base by making things so awesome for them by leveraging technology. So that just came to me just now, just thinking about what you've done. And again, I don't know if that resonates for Martha or for Dan. I don't know if you comment on that, but that's how I see this: is you're actually putting your customer at the center of what you care about most, and leveraging technology to make their experience better. That's how I would encapsulate it.
Yeah, and I think the other key thing is we're building a brand, right? We're building, one of the things that when I think about leveraging or kind of disrupting, is that we're in an industry that, I didn't know any of these companies that I currently deal with or interact with existed until I had the opportunity to join Arctic, right? Where we all know Dasani water, we all know, and I think so that there's a great opportunity for us to kind of disrupt, and then also in a sense disrupt it, but also really help our direct customers, our store customers, in helping to really kind of grow the basket tied to a purchase of ice. And I think that, through our data, but through, kind of that push and use of technology, I think there's a lot of great opportunities there.
I agree. Hey, so if you had the benefit of hindsight, you could rewind the clock back to the beginning of all this, what would you do differently?
I think it would go back to that original comment that I made. I think we didn't understand that we really needed to change the way we thought about things. The process has made that evident, but we didn't sit down at the beginning and say, hey, how do we blow this all up and do it the way we would really do it if we were starting from scratch? I think that all companies struggle with I've done it this way, so I just want kind of a modern version of what I've always been doing. And so that's where your comment about the disruptors, right? I mean, I'm sure there was somebody in a taxi cab company in New York City that had thought, hey, I should build an app. But they weren't going to change the dynamic, right? They were just going to give you an app, but they weren't going to change how it worked, and how the pricing worked and all of that. And so I think that looking back on it, we should have done more of that than we did. I think that other things that we could have probably done differently was maybe engage the customer earlier than we did, and get their feedback for the things that they care about. One of the interesting things that I've learned through this experience is a lot of times what we think the customer has zero interest in. And yet we're going to go spend lots of energy and resources on it because, our brilliant minds say they want it. And then when we put it in front of them, they go, oh, I love everything but that one thing. And you're all, quietly thinking, oh my God. And so we should have done more of that, I think. And then we should have thought probably more on the sense of, I think, if you remember when we first engaged you guys, it was all about a high volume call center and taking a lot of orders. We probably should have from the get-go said, we want to take a lot of orders, but I don't actually want a high volume call center. I want a high volume contact center. And we didn't really do that until we built it and went, this is awesome. It's even better than what we had before, but we could have made a bigger leap, I think, faster, but you got to learn. And I'm a firm believer. I don't go back and do wishful. We try to learn from it and then take that into our future engagements. Maybe use it as an argument for why we should do certain things a little differently this time around.
Yeah, no, I agree. And for the benefit of those that are kind of listening in, it's listen to what Nick's saying. And if you're thinking about doing something like this, maybe rewind the clock, figuratively speaking, and maybe do those things. It's interesting when I used to use a BlackBerry when the mobile devices were pretty hot. And I remember everyone started using the iPhone. And I saw the iPhone as just a way to browse the web more than anything. And I thought, why would I want to browse the web so much when I'm on my mobile device? I need email and I need to, do text messaging and phone calls. But I didn't know what I needed yet. But I think what you've done is been able to take a look at your customer and say, what problem do they have with dealing with us? And how can we make that better? And how can we think 2 steps forward? Like they say Wayne Gretzky was such a great hockey player because he would go to where the puck was going to be, not to where it is, right? Mm-hmm. And so I feel like what you've done is you've put yourself in the position of where does our customer need to be for them to really enjoy the experience and be a long-term customer, and you leverage technology to make that happen. And that's what I see that's what you've done and continue to do, which is pretty awesome. Yep. Martha, so there's a lot of different things Arctic can do, and you're in the business of helping clients make these decisions. So from your point of view, what additional technologies do you think Arctic should be exploring as part of the Microsoft stack?
So for me, it's always about outcomes. So if I think of the enablers, customers, you're talking about disruption. Customers vote with their feet a lot faster than they ever have. So for me, continued investments in the Microsoft stack would be to support Arctic to continue to be as nimble as possible, offer the ability to differentiate their experience with their customers when it makes sense. Because keep in mind, we think of our personas that we did. We had everything from the teenager who works at I always call it Mac's convenience store, and I apologize. The Mac's convenience store who's got to order ice through to your movie producer. So as we're thinking about differentiated experiences, using the technology to be able to invest in the differentiated experience where there is ROI. And that would be for me is really, and then connecting that up to the technology. So you're talking about Microsoft marketing, you're talking about more data analysis, you're talking about kind of early adoption of AI, but still using that foundation. So adding to the foundation to be able to provide that nimbler business operation that's a reflection of the brand that Arctic Glacier is trying to become.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. You know, I'm sitting here putting myself in Dan's shoes. You know, I remember the phone call to me from Dan saying, "Hey, can you help Arctic Glacier?" And so Dan, this must sound good to you. You must feel pretty good that you were able to start this all off and help your customer be successful. How are you seeing that happen with other customers that you work with, and how are they using Microsoft solutions to make their businesses better?
Yeah, Nick started off in, you know, we used an ERP partner without the vast CRM experience. All right, so we had to recoup from that, which I think we did, and thank you for what HSO did there to get Arctic to a better spot. But we see, you know, the whole breadth of the technology from Power Platform to take data from disparate applications and bring it together and enable frontline workers, or you know, extending the power of Dynamics, and instead of licensing everyone with a, you know, expensive enterprise license, they could just have a Power App. The fact that we're embedded Power Apps within Teams, so you don't even need a Dynamics license to access some of the data. So really trying to take all this data and you know, spread it throughout the organization so people can leverage it to do their roles, and you know, have all that information at their fingertips, right? It's not just someone who has a expensive enterprise license. We're trying to democratize the technology so everyone in the organization has access to be impactful. So, you know, you mentioned kind of future state and what's next for Arctic. You know, we invest $15 billion in R&D across all the Microsoft solutions, whether it's Azure, Modern Workplace, business applications, or Surface, right? So the fact that this is all in cloud now, hosted in Canada, gives you, you know, a ton of opportunity to leverage new features and functions, whether we develop that first party or acquire it. You know, we've never before seen as much investment in business applications as we do today. So exciting future for us, for our partners, and for our customers.
No, thanks, Dan. No, it's interesting. As a longtime partner of Microsoft, we've been doing this since the first version of Dynamics came out. And we see it. We actually go in and meet with executives from companies, and they're saying to us, you know, we want to invest in the Microsoft stack. We already have Office 365 in the cloud. Our teams are playing around with Power BI, and they found that on their own, and they love it. You know, we're using Teams because of the collaboration requirement with COVID and this and that. So they, you know, C-level, not just CIOs, but other C-level have actually come to us and said, we buy into the Microsoft strategy. Where do we start? You know, and that's what we've been seeing more and more.